What's up guys, today we're going to be looking at painting up a Primaris Space Marine in the Grimdark style. This is a custom chapter scheme that I've chosen for my army with a subtle green, a nice gray contrast color, and a nice gold trim to really tie it all together. So let's get started. First off, we're going to prime the model in Chaos Black. Then after it dries, we're going to start applying the main armor color, which is a 1-to-1 ratio of AK Interactive green-gray and gray-green. When we are applying the base coat, we don't need to be precise here. After we apply all our base colors, we're going to go back and clean up everything. But until then, we just want to make sure that you have good coverage and a smooth finish, so don't forget to do this in 2 thin coats. Up next, we're going to apply Eshin Gray to the shoulder, helmet, and top of the power pack. This is a nice charcoal color that complements the main armor color and it adds a nice contrast between the 2 colors. Make sure to do this in 2 thin coats so we can retain as much detail as possible. After that, take some black paint and start applying it to the rifle and the joints. I like using AK Interactive's black because it's a little flat compared to the primer and has a nice finish that lends itself to the style pretty well. Be as precise as you can when applying this, but you don't have to sweat it too much because we're still going to go back and we're going to clean up everything. But the more precise you are now, it saves you a little bit of time in the future. For any leather or parchment elements we're going to use, we're going to base that in Rhinox hide, and we're going to apply that to the pouches, the strap, and we're going to also base our purity seal parchment with that as well. Next, we're going to start working on our gold trim and gold elements. The gold that I'm using is Vallejo Old Gold. I really like the color. It's really nice and saturated, and it looks great after we apply our washes and highlights to it as well. For any remaining metal parts, I like using Citadel's Iron Warriors, but any iron metal color paint will also work just fine, such as Lead Belcher. Apply this to the power pack vents, the helmet tubes, and the rifle muzzle. To add some color variety, we're going to base the grenade in his hand with Castilian Green, the Purity Seal Parchment in Ushabti Bone, and the Purity Seal with Mephiston Red. After we have all our base colors down, it's important to take some time and using those same base colors to go around the model and clean up any spillage so we have a nice tidy model. From there we're going to apply some decals, so I've added some squad markings and the battle line marking to his shoulder and also to the back of his power pack. I used Micro Soul and Micro Set to get a good application of these to the model. After our decals are set and dry, I typically like to apply a varnish to protect what we've done so far. This step is optional, but I like to have it just for added protection. When we start to use mineral spirits, if you are too aggressive with them physically, it can start to dig into the acrylic. But since we are varnishing, we shouldn't have that issue. We should be fine, but it's just better safe than sorry. After the varnish has dried, go back to Rhinox hide and using a piece of foam from a cheap foam brush, we're going to take a little bit, rip it off, and then we're going to start just dabbing it all over the model to get a nice range of small to large chips. Now we're going to start with our oil washes. We're going to take AK Interactive Streaking Grime and mix it with some mineral spirits in a roughly 60-40 mix, 60 being the grime and the other 40 being the spirits. Make sure you use a cheap brush for this, as it is going to be pretty harsh on your brush, whatever you're using. But make sure you go over the whole model with this, making sure to get it right in the nooks and crannies and everywhere, because if you miss a spot, the light color, especially if you're doing light color on your armor, is going to really show through and it's going to be really obvious. After the model is covered, we aren't going to wait for it to dry at all, so we're going to take a Q-tip and dampen it with some mineral spirits. We're going to wipe most of the spirits away on like a paper towel, and then we're going to start dabbing it and wiping the grime away. The goal of this isn't to remove all of it, but model it where it looks weathered and battle worn. So we're going to take our time with it. It takes a long time to dry, so you got plenty of time to work with it. When you're doing this, remember not to put too much physical pressure on the model. We don't really want to be scrubbing at the model, we just want to be moving the wash around and taking some of it off. We applied our varnish, so the likelihood of that happening is pretty small, but I'd rather err on the side of caution. For any hard to reach spots, you can take a small cheap brush and do the same application of dampening it with some mineral spirits, wiping the majority off, and then working the area that you can't really reach with a Q-tip. Here it is, all dry. You can wait for it to dry, or you can get a hair dryer and just blast it until it's dry that way. But now we're going to start adding in our rust effects. So straight from the pot, we're going to dip our brush into AK Interactive's rust streaks, and then we're just going to start adding this to areas where we want rust to form. So I have it at the bottom of his knee guard, on his chest plate, in the recesses on his leg, his backpack, anywhere you want to add rust, we're going to start applying this. Once that is applied, we're going to take the same brush and we're going to lightly dampen it with some mineral spirits. We're going to wipe most of it off, and then we're going to start working on the rust. We're going to make streaks down the leg, down the knee pads, down the backpack, down the back armor, and any other flat areas where rust streaks might form like that. As you can see, it's pretty workable, so if you mess up on this section, go and get your mineral spirits and you can correct it fairly easily. last portion of our rush is to then add AK's light rust wash and just add small amounts to the areas where rust already is. We don't want to go overboard, so it's just a small amount. If you need to take any off, just use a cheap brush and spirits and you can work it away. I like to be selective here. I think less is more when it comes to like the super light rust wash, so apply a little bit, and if you feel like you need to go back in and apply more, you can go ahead and go do that. And here it is all dried. The majority of our work is done. Now we're just going to go and do some detail work to our model before calling it finished. For the leather, we're going to start with using some thinned down morphing brown and doing some rough edge highlighting on the pouches and the torn sling. We're going to follow that with some finer highlighting using scrag brown to really make the leather stand out more and add more depth. I don't like edge highlighting every edge. I do believe that less is more. We just want to add enough where we're giving definition to the shape, we're making it stand out a little bit more and giving the model more depth. Let's move on to highlighting the golden metal. For the gold, I'm highlighting using Sycorax bronze and stippling it and highlighting it on the top edges of the gold trim and chapter icon. Just like with the leather, we don't want to go overboard on the highlighting. You can always add more if you think it needs it, but we want this to be nice and scuffed up and dirty, so we're going to be selective with it. The iron is getting the same treatment, but with our base color of Iron Warriors. Now we're going to start working on the lenses. We're going to do a subtle glow effect, so what we're going to do is we're going to base the lens with bold titanium white from Pro Acrylic. Be steady, and if you spill some over onto the faceplate, you can grab your Eshin Gray and touch it up so it's nice and precise. While that white is drying, you can move on to the next step of applying thinned down Dawnstone to our gray and black parts of the model. Once again, be sparse with where you want to add it. We just want to highlight enough to make those parts pop, but not overwhelm every edge with it. Just to make clear, thin down your acrylics with water. Don't use mineral spirits with your acrylics. We want to keep the mineral spirits just for our oil washes. Once the Dawnstone is applied, take your Iron Warriors and just add a few small dings and small scratches over the model. I tend to be very selective where I add it and in very minor amounts just because I don't want to overwhelm the model and I don't want to take away from the paint job that we've already done. Going back to our lenses, we're going to start adding some glow. This is going to be pretty simple. We're going to take some fairly thinned down Storm Fiend contrast and glaze it onto the lenses and just barely beneath the lens. If you feel like you want to add more glow, you just do this step as many times as you want, but it can get out of hand rather quickly. Here I did it about 2 to 3 times to get the color that I wanted. After it is dry, all you're going to do is take some white and then add a small amount to the highest part of the lens. After that, I decided to take some Citadel Nuln oil to the parchment and the grenade to tone it down a little bit and add a little bit more shading and depth to those because I feel like it is lacking. And with all that, we're going to add it to our base and be done. Thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you learned something new that you can add to your toolbox of mini painting. This isn't an end-all guide to Grimdark painting. There are so many other videos out there that will help you create awesome results. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for future videos. If you have any questions, you can comment below, and I'll see you next time.